my channel. My name is Carly Stevens. I'm the author of the young adult fantasy Firian Rising, and this is English Nerd. So since it is the last Monday of 2019, I thought I would do a bit of a wrap-up as far as the reading that I've done. I'm not going to talk about every book that I read because that would be a lot this year, actually. I read about 43-ish books this year, which is more than I can remember reading possibly ever, except for maybe when I was in college as an English major. So it's been a great year for reading. There would be a million runners-up, but I thought I would just share with you a handful of books that have stuck with me and that I would highly recommend, at least to the people who enjoy the genre. So here are some of the best books that I read in 2019. First one is the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. These are fabulous and they just get better. Cinder I thought was pretty good. It took me a little while to get into it, but then Scarlet I was off to the races. Cress I thought was even better, and then by the time Winter was finished, I was just practically in tears. This quartet has just the best characters. It has kind of a Star Wars-y vibe with the action. So basically the premise is that each one is loosely a fairy tale retelling, but instead it is very much with a twist. It's young adult sci-fi, and the first main character that you meet, Cinder, is a cyborg mechanic who is, of course, loosely Cinderella kind of character. So highly recommended, even though it has a high-heeled shoe on the front. I actually recommend this to guys as well because it's just a complete blast. There are amazing, strong female characters. There are great male characters. The action is wonderful. The romance is fun. I mean, it's just, I cannot recommend this series highly enough if you have not already read it. Okay, the second book that I would recommend, and this is the only one that's not young adult, but I just can't help myself, is Iya Go by Nicole Galland. If you have not already seen my video all about Othello, which is an interview with Nicole Galland, I would definitely recommend that you check that out. I was just so privileged to be able to talk to her, basically because I read this book about a year ago. It was right at the beginning of 2019, and I was so completely blown away that I immediately tried to contact Ms. Galland to tell her how much I enjoyed this story. So essentially this is a retelling of Shakespeare's Othello from the villain's point of view. Iago has always fascinated me. He's always been one of my favorite villain characters because he's so brilliant and yet so hard to figure out at the same time. Like, what is his motivation? Why does he decide to bring everybody down? And I thought that her interpretation of him, humanizing him, was just beyond brilliant. Now, again, this one is not YA. It's the only one that's not young adult, so there are some scenes that are inappropriate for younger readers, but all in all, highly, highly recommend if you enjoy retellings and if you enjoy Shakespeare. My next recommendation is The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. This cover is a little funky. I don't really like it when there are people on the cover, but anyway, this is another quartet. I don't know what was with quartets this year, but man, I lucked out. The audiobook of this series is just, it was so gripping that I looked forward to being in the car because then I could listen and find out what happened next. So basically this story is about a character named Blue who has been told all her life that she would kill her true love. So when she kissed her true love, then he would die. So it's the story of her getting to know these 4 boys that attend Aglenby Academy, which is this college prep school for rich kids down the road. And she never thought she would be friends with those kinds of people, but she falls in with them and their quest to find this dead Welsh king so that he can grant them wishes. And the whole thing is so bizarre and otherworldly. It involves psychics and just very strange. Normally I would not like this kind of story. It has some horror elements in some of the later books, but it was just so gripping. The reason was the characters. The 5 main characters are just unbelievably well developed. They've stuck with me to this day. I got the specialty box for Call Down the Hawk, which is kind of a spin-off series, just because these characters have stuck with me in a way that most other characters have not. So this is another, it is YA, there is some language and stuff in this, so just FYI, if you or the person you're thinking about recommending it to is a little bit on the younger side, you know, just keep that in mind. But I was completely gripped, and it came out of nowhere for me because, again, it has elements that normally I wouldn't like, but in this story, it was just the perfect storm. I immediately bought all 4 of the books in this series, although I'm just holding up the first. And then, of course, as far as books that have mattered to me this year go, I mean, I have to mention Firian Rising. It was my debut novel, and it has, in some ways, just changed my life. It's launched my author career. I have the second book finished, Into the Unreal, which is going to be the sequel that I'm really excited about. But Furion Rising, I mean, I think it's genuinely a good book. And that's not just because it's mine. So the story, the premise of this one is that Firion, the main character, finds out that he has this rare ability to go into the unreal, which is an imaginary space that can be shared only by people who have this special ability. It's kind of like imagination or the Matrix or whatever analogy you want to use, but he gets recruited by an academy that specializes in weaponizing that. So he's very excited because he can finally prove that he's worth something. He's not just this worthless kid. So it's his story and the story of Kyria, the other main character, who is basically the princess of the country that they live in. So it's incredibly twisty. It's fun. If you haven't checked it out, definitely do so, especially with the second one coming out this May, which I'm very excited about. So what were some of the books that you enjoyed most in 2019, and what are those that you're looking forward to in 2020? Tell me in the comments, like this video if you like it, and don't forget to subscribe to English Nerd. See you on Monday. Bye.